Hey, happy Thursday. There was a little mess up with today's live. I scheduled it at 3:30 a.m. by accident instead of 3:30 p.m. So some people were probably confused, thinking, what in the heck is she doing, scheduling that for the middle of the night? But hopefully, as I reminded you during the live yesterday, that there was a live today at 3:30 p.m. Some of you guys will jump on with me here momentarily. Today we're going to be talking about kettlebells versus dumbbells, kettlebell training versus dumbbell training. So I'm excited to chat a little bit more about this with you. Again, apologies for the wrong timing on the live, but hopefully you guys will be able to jump on here with me in just a minute. I probably should have changed this to something more comfortable to demonstrate exercises, and I'm in jeans right now. But, you know, sometimes you think you have time until, especially when you're doing something digitally or online. I was working on something else on my computer, and then I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time. It's 3:15. Oh, I got plenty of time. It's 3:20. It's 3:24. I got plenty of time. It's 3:20. Oh, crap. It's 3:30 right now. Okay, I got to start right now. That's just what happens sometimes. Hope my boss won't get mad at me. I'm the boss. Okay, so today we're going to talk about kettlebells versus dumbbells. Some of you maybe joined me yesterday for the dumbbell arm workout. I think that might be the first time I've ever done a live workout with dumbbells, or at least a live arm workout with dumbbells. It was fun. We had fun. If you missed it and you want to check it out, you can still check it out. The replay is up. If you just go to my YouTube channel, click the live tab, and then you just find the workout from yesterday that says dumbbell arm workout. Check it out. It's an awesome workout. You just need a pair of light dumbbells and one heavy dumbbell. And would love to hear your thoughts. If you give it a try, leave me a comment on there. Today we're going to talk about kettlebell versus dumbbell training. I feel like this is often a question that I get on lives that people ask, like, what's better, a kettlebell or a dumbbell? And obviously, if somebody's going to be training at home, they may be asking that because they're trying to decide which tool should they spend the money on getting in their home gym. Should they get dumbbells? Should they get kettlebells? I mean, of course, optionally, you just get all the tools, but you know, fitness tools are expensive. So maybe you don't want to buy, multiple, and you're deciding kettlebells or should I get dumbbells? What should I do? So maybe today's chat will help you a little bit with if that's a decision you are looking to make. Hi, YouTube Punk. Thanks for saying hi and dropping a like. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, if you're here watching, let me know you're here. Let me know if you have any questions on kettlebells versus dumbbells. So, obviously, I think you guys already know that I think this, but both are great tools for building strength. YouTube Punk just said kettlebells superior, dumbbells inferior. I disagree with that. I like dumbbells also. Obviously, I have more kettlebells. I use kettlebells more. I'm known for kettlebells, so it's part of what I do as a coach. But there's no reason that you can't use dumbbells to get into great shape, or barbells, or jump roping, or body weight, or swimming, or whatever you do. Okay, but we're just going to talk today about some different things that I think, dumbbells are more optimal for and kettlebells are more optimal for. Yeah, I figured, YouTube Punk, he said that was typed tongue-in-cheek. I figured. Okay, so if your goal is strength, both of these tools are great ways to build strength. If your goal is conditioning, both of them are great tools for conditioning. That being said, I think a kettlebell is a better tool for conditioning because there's a lot of different conditioning exercises that lend themselves better to a kettlebell than to dumbbells. They might be a little clumsy or awkward with dumbbells. Hey, Bucky, thanks for joining. Bucky said, I'm mostly kettlebell, but I think the most underrated thing, I have a 7-pound mace that cost me $40. Great for home gyms. Yeah, maces are awesome. Maces are great. You know, my favorite thing, I talk about it a lot, is the stall bar. That's like my favorite home gym tool there. Stay tuned. I've actually got some new things, some new tools that I've added to the stall bar. I went on a tour of the Beyond Balance facility, and they gave me some new toys to play with, so I'm excited to experiment with those and show you guys a little more about that. But of course, a stall bar is a bit more of an expensive investment than getting something like a 40-pound mace, so that might be more doable for most people. The stall bar may be like a down the road kind of thing because it is a little more pricey, between like $500 and $700. But, you know, it also gives you a pull-up bar, and there's different tools you can add to it to make it really versatile. So depending on what your training is, it may be worth it to you. So, as I mentioned, I think kettlebell is a really valuable conditioning tool. Again, you can do conditioning with dumbbells, but there's certain things that just aren't going to lend themselves as well to dumbbells as they do to kettlebells. So, a few things that I wanted to say, some exercises that are going to work better with kettlebells, and many of these are going to fall under that kind of conditioning category. So swings, okay? Obviously you can swing a dumbbell, okay? I'll show you. They call it like a wood chopper or something, I think I've done this in a fitness class before, but it's something like this, right? So you're using your dumbbell to swing, but that being said, it is far more awkward than using your kettlebell to perform a swing. So you can do it. I just think it doesn't work as well, and the heavier the dumbbell gets, the less doable it is for you to use it for that exercise, because it's just going to because there's weight on each end, it's gonna go kind of funny, and you're more at risk of dropping it. So it's not as safe to do as a swing with a heavier kettlebell. So swings, obviously, better with kettlebells. Similarly, A and U turn handoffs, around the body handoffs, just to give you guys a visual. So these are a couple of my favorite swinging exercises we do in solo. So an A-turn handoff. This is not going to work real well with a dumbbell, okay? It's just going to be clumsy. You're more likely to drop it. Similar with a U-turn handoff where you're going behind the back. Same idea. It's just not going to be practical with a dumbbell. The dumbbell's not going to swing well, right? Same with a around the body handoff. Could you maybe figure out how to do this with a dumbbell? Sure, but again, it's riskier. You're more likely to drop it on your toe or on the floor or something, okay? And then you're worried about that instead of just doing the exercise. So all of those are great exercises for conditioning, building your strength, building your core and your arm strength and your grip, okay? Other exercises that are not going to work as well with a dumbbell would be all of the leg exercises we do in solo, like thigh rainbows, like thigh circles, okay, like shin circles, like shin circle figure eights. Again, you could try to do this with a dumbbell. It would work. It's just awkward, okay? And then the weight kind of keeps shifting side to side. Another thing that I really like about kettlebells is doing exercises in the crush grip here, okay? Presses, curls. Again, you could do something similar with a dumbbell, but it's a little wider. It's a little bit less optimal, I think, than the narrower crush grip. Things like a rack carry or an overhead carry are going to work better and be more comfortable with a kettlebell. You could do it with a dumbbell, but it's going to be a little bit harder on the wrist, say, if you're holding it here in the rack. And similarly, although overhead carry is good with a dumbbell as well. There's no reason you can't do an overhead carry with a dumbbell. I would just say I prefer it with the kettlebell. It's a little more stable versus like this is actually a lot, in some ways is more challenging to do. And with overhead holds already being quite a challenging exercise for most people, we don't necessarily need it to be harder, but you could absolutely do that one with a dumbbell. Some exercises that are going to work better with a dumbbell, in my opinion, and again, you could do some of these with a kettlebell, but they're just going to work better with a dumbbell. Let me grab one of my light ones. Okay, so one of the ones that I really don't want to do with a kettlebell is a lateral raise, right? So this one, again, if you had a super light kettlebell, like this one I have here, you could do it, but Most people don't have this weight. This is a 4 kg kettlebell, and that might be too heavy for many people on a lateral raise. So having a super light dumbbell is going to work better for a lateral raise. I would say similar for a front raise with a dumbbell. Again, you could do with a kettlebell, just works better with a dumbbell. I would say bicep curl, just like an isolated bicep curl is going to work better with your dumbbell, okay? What I really do like is like a crush grip bicep curl with a kettlebell, but again, it's not as like isolated because you're getting a little more forearm. I'm just not a fan of this kind of bicep curl because once you get to the top, it's almost like too easy, and then it's just the way that weight, it's just not as comfortable. I prefer dumbbell personally. I would say similar with a lot of different tricep extension exercise, whether that's, you know, an overhead tricep extension or it's something like this one that we did in the class yesterday. It just lends itself better to a dumbbell than a kettlebell because the kettlebell is bottom heavy or has more of the weight towards the bottom. It's going to make it more difficult in a way that doesn't necessarily make the exercise any better. And another exercise, some of the kettlebell people will be like, oh, when I say this, but I'm not a fan of the kettlebell halo. I think I've talked about this before. I'm not really a fan of this exercise because especially if you're a woman or a man, you put your hair up when you train, it just gets in the way, it makes your hair frizzy. But what I really like is a halo with a dumbbell. I really like halo with a dumbbell. I don't know, it just feels better to me. If you have a kettlebell and a dumbbell, try them both out and tell me which one you like better. I like this exercise a lot, and I'll actually do it versus I never do halos with a kettlebell. Sue me. I don't know. Salahuddin said, I prefer cables and resistance bands. Any particular exercises you like to do with those? I got some resistance bands too. I like resistance bands. I like resistance bands for certain exercises, and for others, I feel like, you know, of course, with the resistance band, you're always dealing with the further away you are, the further you're pulling the band, that's where you get the most resistance. So sometimes that means at a shortened range of motion, you're not getting as much resistance. And that's not always the same with a dumbbell or a kettlebell either, but I think it's easier to make it more even. For biceps, but a mixture works. Nice. What do you do with the resistance band? Do you just like hook it to the ground and do a bicep curl, or what do you like doing for your biceps with a resistance band? Okay, a few exercises that work well with both kettlebells and dumbbells. Okay, so snatches. You can do snatches with both a kettlebell or a dumbbell, right? You can snatch the kettlebell. It can be a little bit more challenging to learn a kettlebell snatch than a dumbbell snatch, right? Because a dumbbell snatch, you're just going to kind of go right up, and you don't have to worry about the insertion, like getting your hand into the kettlebell handle. So in many ways, that's easier. Similarly, a clean is easier with a dumbbell, just kind of like here, right? But works well here. The one thing you're not getting with a dumbbell is you're not getting like the eccentric phase on the snatch or the clean, right? So with the snatch, you're here and you're like dropping it down, so you're getting the eccentric phase. And similarly with a clean, you're going up and you're dropping it down, so you're getting a little bit of a different effect. And I would say, you know, the kettlebell is obviously going to be, kettlebell cleans and snatches are obviously going to be better for endurance, right? That's why kettlebell sport uses a kettlebell, so you can rest in rack position or have a better rest overhead than if you were using, say, a dumbbell. It just wouldn't work. So if you're doing endurance cleans and snatches, things like that, the kettlebell is going to work better. But if you're going for power and speed, it's going to work great with both. Turkish get up you could do with both a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Again, I think the dumbbell in some ways is going to be harder because it's a little bit more challenging to balance overhead, but there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do a Turkish get-up with a dumbbell just the same as you would do it with a kettlebell, right? So Turkish get-ups, great with both. Bent rows are gonna work well with both. We did some of those with dumbbells yesterday in our workout, as well as farmer carries, right? So farmer carry, like when you've got 1 or 2 kettlebells, many people do this with kettlebells, but there's no reason you can't do it with dumbbells as well. It's gonna work just as well with a dumbbell. It might be, again, a little bit more comfortable with a kettlebell as opposed to a dumbbell, but both are gonna work. Do you guys have any other exercises? Those are kind of the ones that I thought of. Do you guys have any other exercises that you prefer with a dumbbell versus a kettlebell, or the other way around? Salahuddin said a reverse grip lat pull down is the best for biceps, hands down, if done properly. Do you do that with the cable resistance band or both? Do you do that with a machine at the gym? I feel like that'd be a nice one to do with resistance bands. I could probably hook up a resistance band to my pull-up bar and just the machine. Yeah, that's a great exercise. That's something I would like to have in my home gym, is have like a lat pull down machine. That's a great machine. Single and double cable, or a cable machine. I'd be open to a cable machine. Do you guys have a preference? Do you prefer dumbbells or kettlebells? Let me know in the chat. Let me see who here prefers a kettlebell, who here prefers a dumbbell. If you had to choose, which one do you prefer, or would you be more likely to use? Any thoughts? Dumbbells, kettlebells? Okay, so Salahuddin said dumbbells all the way. Anyone else? More practical. Bucky said kettlebell, but you probably knew that. Yeah, I could have guessed that. Anyone else? Dumbbells or kettlebells? What's your preference? Tuna Juice said Kegels. Nice. I'm glad you're enjoying that. And so if you prefer kettlebells, what are your top 3 kettlebell exercises? And if you prefer dumbbells, what are your top 3 dumbbell exercises? Scott said my collection says I prefer bells. That's definitely what my collection says too, Scott. I have a hard time finding 2 dumbbells that match, as you'll see if you check out the dumbbell workout I did on here yesterday. Kettlebells, I just got a big collection, you know? Lots of things to do with them. Bhavani said kettlebell swings. Okay, that's a top exercise. Anyone else with your top 3 kettlebell or dumbbell exercises? Hi there. Thanks for joining. Mo75 Soy. Sorry, I'm not sure how to say your YouTube name. That's the hardest part of reading people's comments out loud in the chat, is if I don't know what your YouTube handle says or means. Any other favorite kettlebell and dumbbell exercises? We just got swings. Okay, Bucky said snatch and jerk. Haven't done long cycle in a long time. I do goblet squat sometimes and swings. Nice. I like it. Any other favorites, kettlebell or dumbbell exercises? Okay, we got for upper body incline dumbbell presses, overhead, and farmer's walk with heavy dumbbells. Nice. Yeah, those are gonna be tough. Scott said I still do some GS, snatch only, long cycle and presses, round out top 3. Nice. Okay, Bhavani said farmer's walk. I guess this means that no one here has experienced the joy of the thigh rainbow yet. You guys haven't checked it out yet. Side lateral raises are really hard for me, LOL. Yeah, lateral raises are tough. Very tough. Scott said, what? Yeah, the thigh rainbow. If you don't know what the thigh rainbow is, and like, what are you even doing with your kettlebells, you know? Other favorite exercises? Rainbow? Thigh rainbow? Yeah, the thigh rainbow. I just showed it earlier. You might have missed it. It's here. Make a little rainbow. Real simple, but you want to go nice and slow. And then you can also do it with a pulse. You could do that slow, or you could do it a little faster, depending on how much you want your legs to burn and how much you want to sweat. I'm starting to sweat just by doing a few reps there. He said, yeah, I've never heard of that, LOL. That's because it's a unique exercise that's part of Kettlebell Solo, which is what I teach. I can't claim to have come up with it. My partner, Michael, came up with all the moves that are in it. A lot of them pretty unique, but excellent ways to get the benefits of kettlebells without being as technical. So a good way, thigh rainbow, like a pulse thigh rainbow is a great way for a beginner to get their heart rate up and feel the benefits of kettlebells without needing to have any technical knowledge, which is the beauty of it. Bhavani, it is called a thigh rainbow. Here, I'll send you guys a little clip that talks about the thigh rainbow, so you can get a little demo. I'm gonna pull it from the Kettlebell Solo YouTube channel, which is my other YouTube channel. This is everyone's their favorite exercise. Their love to hate, hate to love, whatever exercise from the classes and programs that I teach. Here's the link to it. It's just like a little video showing me talking about the thigh rainbow and doing the thigh rainbow. I believe I'm doing a static version, but you can also, as I showed, do it with a pulse. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. Yeah, so definitely check out the thigh rainbow. It's one of my favorite exercises. If I were to pick, it is kind of hard to pick the top 3 exercises. I'm just thinking like, hi Mario, thanks for joining. Scott said racked walking lunges and heel elevated double kettlebell front squat are my favorite leg and glute development exercises with bells. Nice. That sounds tough and fun. Yeah, heel elevated squats are a great one for the quads. Absolutely. I usually do just like a goblet squat version because I don't go super heavy, but rack squats sounds like it may be even more challenging variation for it. Yeah, some of my favorites would be thigh rainbows. Around the body handoffs have become one of my favorites in the last few years. Michael Brogan said, do you think the first class for a beginner would involve an extensive history of the kettlebell as a prelude to the workout? Michael, I think that would depend on their interest. If that was something that they were super interested in, sure. I think oftentimes people need to feel something to get an experience. So for me personally as a teacher, I don't think I would include that in someone's first workout, well, I mean, you know, I don't think I would include that because I don't know if everybody would be interested. For the people that were interested, and that would make them more likely to want to continue, because of course, like with any exercise program, the benefits come from being consistent in the long run and figuring out, you know, what are the benefits that somebody wants to experience and how can they get a little glimpse of that maybe in their first session. Do you know when the kettlebell was invented? I don't. I've read kettlebell histories before, but I have to say I don't know it super well. Do you know? What a question. I want to know for carnivore, good or no good. I assume you're asking, is the carnivore diet good or no good? I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't, you know, I'm no expert on how everything works. My personal experience is that I think eating just meat can be healthy, or can be useful for some people, but I think it's not really sustainable, and I think it's also probably not ultimately, I think any diet that completely eliminates a food group is probably not sustainable. Again, it depends on the person. But from what I know, I think that, you know, vegetables and carbohydrates are important for feeding the good bacteria in your gut. So if you have some, if you like eliminate them altogether, it could, it's my understanding that it could lead to an imbalance in the population of the gut flora. But again, I'm not an expert, so you have to do your own research on that. But I personally don't recommend or follow carnivore diet. Michael said, I thought maybe it started on the farms with some sort of heavy objects. There's an article somewhere here about, I've seen articles about this before. So what I'm seeing here is that kettlebells were originated in Russia in the 18th century. They were used as a simple yet effective tool for weighing crops and goods. So it sounds like you're right, Michael, that they probably were invented around stuff with farming. That's what I'm seeing here. So yeah, it says originally used as counterweights for weighing farm goods, they quickly gained popularity as a tool for strength and conditioning among Russian athletes and military personnel. Yeah, you probably just read the same thing that I did. Obviously, we'd have to verify. I don't know how true that is or not, but I'm seeing that in another article as well. But, you know, it's hard to know because sometimes those articles just reference each other. So it's hard to know what that's based on. I've never really looked in depth into history of the kettlebell, but it kind of makes sense. You know, they are good for stuff like that. You know, they got a handle on them, kind of easy to transport. And we turned them into a whole culture, a whole fitness culture, which is great. Do you guys have any questions about kettlebells versus dumbbells? Bucky said there were also things called stone locks that were used in China that are very similar to kettlebells. Interesting, yeah. It's probably not just Russia, and they're probably in other areas. Yeah, big with the martial arts crowd. That makes sense. Thanks for sharing that tidbit. Yeah, it is kind of interesting how these things came around, or like the history of the dumbbell. I know that like strong men use them, but I don't know where it originally came from. Supposedly, according to Wikipedia, although we don't know how accurate that is, dumbbells originated in England. But then somewhere else it says ancient civilizations of Greece, Egypt, and India. So I think dumbbells were kind of all over. But I think it sounds like in these they're saying that they originated as a fitness tool. Michael asks, what's the heaviest kettlebell you own? I think my heaviest kettlebell, I think the heaviest kettlebell I have a Bells of Steel adjustable kettlebell that goes up to 32 kg. So that's the heaviest one I own. My partner has, I think, at least a 40, maybe he's got a 48. But we don't have like the 200-pound kettlebell. But the gym I used to work at in San Diego, we had the 200-pound kettlebell, 150-pound kettlebell. I remember when those kettlebells arrived at the gym after they were purchased, and the disgruntled delivery guy dropped them off on top of, just put this whole pallet in the middle of the gym and just took off, and I was the only one at the gym. And I think he didn't even move it all the way into the gym. So I had to like somehow get these kettlebells inside the gym before I left because I couldn't just leave them there. The gym was kind of like in the middle of the day, kind of closed until a few hours later. And I was like, great, what am I going to do? So I ended up kind of like pushing and dragging these 150, 250, 100-pound kettlebells into the gym, kind of rolling them end over end to get them back where all the kettlebells were. So that was a fun experience. Yeah, exactly. He missed out on a free workout, although he was probably annoyed having to deal with them at all. He was probably getting a workout just getting them out of the truck, honestly. That was a lot of kettlebell weight. Handstand man, so you should make a cat kettlebell. People buy up cat stuff like no other. The tail could be the handle. That's a great idea. I love that idea. That might be $1 million idea. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Medical said, Miss, I feel like I'm tired and do not fart today. Maybe it is the reason. You know, it could be. If you don't let the gas out, it may just weigh you down and make you tired. You know, just let it free. Yeah. Bucky said UPS charges more for items over 40 pounds, but the delivery drivers get paid the same for bringing them to your door. Yeah, that's kind of unfair, right? They're the ones doing the work to bring these, and they're getting, you know, they're not getting paid more. That's messed up. They should get an extra tip or something. See if we can find anything else out about the history of the dumbbell. In its most basic form, dumbbells can be traced to the ancient Greeks dating back to the 5th century BC, then called a haltere. The Greek version of a dumbbell was an oblong-shaped stone with a handle. Athletes would hold a haltere in each hand and quickly throw the weights backward while in midair to gain momentum in long jumping competitions. Historians believe the ancient Greeks also used them for general exercise to build muscle strength. That's cool. But then in the Middle East, so the Greeks are credited for developing the dumbbell, but athletes, wrestlers, and bodybuilders in the Middle East also used what they called a naul to strength train. This club-shaped piece of equipment was longer than the modern dumbbell, but shorter than a barbell. British colonists adopted the use of the naul, which they called the Indian club, and ultimately brought the equipment to the West. That's interesting. The British colonists took it and turned it into the Indian club. In the 1700s, Joseph Addison crafted his own Indian club by removing the clappers from a church bell to silence it. The bell, now dumb, became what is known today as a dumbbell. Oh, I did not know that. Using dumbbells was a popular exercise in the 18th century, even among our founding fathers. Benjamin Franklin wrote about using dumbbells to maintain his physical fitness and contributed his longevity to using them every day. That is interesting. I wonder if that's true. I'm just reading a random article, so you never know what's true and what isn't. And then at the end they ask, what's your favorite dumbbell exercise? We were just talking about that. Dumbbell is good or push-ups? Well, it doesn't need to be an either or. You could use dumbbells and do push-ups, which is what I would do. Seeing the same things. Halteres, nauls. In Europe, they used stone and metal dumbbells. Athletes and soldiers. Gained popularity in England during the 19th century. Dumbbells being a key tool. It's an interesting history. Do you guys have any other questions about kettlebells or dumbbells before we finish up our live today? Or if you have any topic requests for next week, let me know in the chat. Always like taking recommendations. So if you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see me go live about, any tutorials, topics, workouts you want to see. I may also start going live on the Kettlebell Solo YouTube channel. I'm trying to figure out how I want to grow that channel, so I may just start doing some kettlebell solo workouts there. So make sure that you subscribe to that channel, because I may do that for a little while, see how that goes over there. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. No questions, no questions. All right, you guys, thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and I will see you next week.